morning, the top stories. Over 80 ANC National Executive Committee members will visit the late struggle icon Winnie Mandela's home in Orlando West, Soweto to pay their respects. The South African Communist Party says it will not offer support to former President Jacob Zuma during his impending fraud and corruption trial. And 5 people suspected of a petrol bomb attack on a mine workers' bus in Limpopo are expected to appear in court this morning.
And later in sports, South Africa's Henry Schoeman wins the country's first medal of the 2018 Commonwealth Games, which got underway with the competition in Australia.
It's just gone after 9 a.m. Central African time. A very good morning to you. This is Newsroom on SABC. I'm Simpiwe Ngona. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's take a look at the top story.
Simpiwe, it's good to be with you this morning because I'm going to be with you and the viewers here on Newsroom right up until 12 o'clock. Good to be back here, and we're going to be bringing you sport 1:45 every single hour as we bring you a full sports bulletin. Not only the Commonwealth Games, but also lots of football here in South Africa as well as in Europe. Time now to get your lead story with Simpiwe.
Now this story leads. The next 10 days will be the official mourning period in South Africa as South Africans pay tribute to struggle icon Winnie Mandela. Her funeral service will be held on the 14th of April at the Orlando Stadium with various commemorations planned for the interim period. The ANC's entire National Executive Committee is expected to visit the late struggle icon Winnie Mandela's home in Soweto today to pay their last respects.
From candles to flowers and struggle songs echoing outside the home of the late struggle icon, this is how many mourners have kept the memory of Mam Winnie Mandela alive on the 4th day after her death. And several dignitaries have also been flocking into her house to pay tribute to the late icon. Among them, the former AU chair and minister in the presidency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma.
Mama joined the struggle also as a young woman in her own right, and also she brought up her kids like many other women do. She struggled and she was always at the forefront in defense of her people. She was a fearless freedom fighter. She did not allow any of the people to be alone. When she knew there was a problem, she would be there with the people.
Government is also expected to announce its programs for the funeral, as well as activities that are expected to take place ahead of a funeral on the 14th of April.
The ANC has requested government and the family that we should have a special ANC event, memorial service on Tuesday, the 10th, because Comrade Kresani and Comrade Winnie Mandela were very close. So we'll have it in Bizana, where Comrade Winnie Mandela comes from, so that we also give the people of the Eastern Cape, as the ANC, that privilege to honor and pay their tribute to Comrade Winnie Mandela.
Memorial services will also be held in the various provinces on Monday, and on the international front, a memorial service is expected to be held over the weekend in New York and in Harlem. Mangwaba Mkhunu, SABC News in Orlando, Soweto.
Tributes continue to pour in from around the world for the late ANC stalwart Mama Madikizela Mandela. Former President Jacob Zuma and AU Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mohammed were among those who visited the Madikizela Mandela family home in Soweto.
The second former president has paid his tribute.
She represented many of the mothers who had their husbands in prison, in exile, whose names are not known. Some of them would never be known. She represented that type of a citizen in our country. And she also encouraged them that you could not just sit and say, my husband is arrested.
President Zuma also thanked President Cyril Ramaphosa for giving Mama Winnie a dignified send-off.
She has touched too many people, and all these people should be allowed to come close to this space. We want to thank the family for opening their hands. We have seen all political parties coming here. We think that's the right thing. It must happen.
Opposition parties continue to be represented.
What a wonderful person. I was a young man at that time in 1994 when I joined Parliament, and it was such a wonderful thing to be in the presence of persons with the awe and the aura that Mama Winnie Mandela and other freedom fighters who were in Parliament at that time was. It was a great, and she was always a very humble, friendly kind of individual.
And Africa's highest office has come to Soweto.
I'm here today in Soweto on behalf of the whole family of African Union to pay my respects to the memory of Ma Winnie, who is not only mother of South African nation. She is one of the last of our liberation heroes on the continent.
And the owner of the private Igbinedion University of Nigeria that conferred Mama Winnie and former President Nelson Mandela with honorary degrees.
I'm very sorry, but God knows the best. God knows it all. And the children look behind, we live on. I join the whole millions in the world and people of South Africa to mourn him.
Flags continue to fly at half-mast around the country and in missions abroad as the country begins a period of mourning declared by President Ramaphosa until the burial on the 14th. Ntakwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto.
Well, as tributes continue to pour in for the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela, her picture outside her struggle credentials was also painted. Those who were close to her have described this liberation fighter as a brilliant, generous and kind mother.
From the humble beginnings of Bizana in the Eastern Cape to a global icon, people here knew Mama Winnie as a politician and mother. Her connections to Qunu was through her marriage to the late statesman Nelson Mandela. The Madiba clan says she was true to the character of a decent wife. She mourned her former husband, though they were no longer married. The people of Qunu acknowledged the respect she displayed for her wedding vows. The Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, Contralesa, also remembered Madikizela Mandela as a true leader who also fought for the recognition of traditional leaders.
They were aware that there was a time where Mama Winnie was isolated, and by people who are now singing her praises. But we know what used to happen, because she was part of us then, even in Parliament. But we just hope her soul can rest in peace, because she has done a lot to this country.
Her friend and comrade Dr. Brigalia Bam recalled her fond memories of a young Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela. She befriended her in the 50s at Jan Hoof Meyer School of Social Work in Johannesburg.
Winnie opened so many doors for women and for social workers. Secondly, Winnie became a very important model for young women, because as people see her walking down the long corridors in Baragwanath, she was not a doctor, And everybody got to know this woman as Winnie, a social worker. Many people, and I'm not exaggerating, many people who didn't know much about social workers because no social workers were roaming around the hospitals at the time.
Madikizela Mandela's contributions in the liberation struggle has been documented by various filmmakers. Renowned film producer Anand Singh reflected on his personal encounters with the late Mama Winnie. Singh spent a lot of time with her when producing the film titled Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom in 2013.
When I started with the movie Mandela Long Walk to Freedom based on Madiba's book, it was a long journey, but she was always very supportive. But at the same time slightly apprehensive because, you know, as a filmmaker, Madiba said to me, show me for my weaknesses and my strengths. And I said to her the same thing, that, you know, all of us have weaknesses and strengths.
However, one of the darkest moments in Mama Winnie's marriage must surely have been her divorce to former president.
It was a very difficult time for Winnie. It is inevitable when one's friends become divorced that the relationship between one of them and you changes.
Muntlengani Dipoku, SABC News.
The Interministerial Committee, or rather Committee of Ministers, is holding a media briefing at the Orlando Stadium on the special official funeral of the late Winnie Madikizela Mandela. President Cyril Ramaphosa declared a special official funeral to honor the woman who became the face of anti-apartheid resistance for a period spanning 3 decades. The funeral service will be held at Orlando Stadium on Saturday, the 14th of April. Let's go straight to the media briefing now.
I'm going to invite the chairperson of the Interministerial Committee, Minister Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, to brief members of the media and the public.
Thank you very much, Minister. The Premier, the ministers, I see we've been joined by Minister Mkize and the staff of GCIS, and ladies and gentlemen of the media. The Interministerial Committee on the State and Official Funerals wishes to take this opportunity to again voice the President's and the government's expression of condolences to the Mandela and Madikizela families, to the South Africans, the continent and the world at large. On behalf of the government, we would like to thank everyone across the globe for their overwhelming support to the Mandela and Madikizela families. We also want to thank all South Africans, including the media, who have come together to celebrate, to reflect on the selfless sacrifices made by Mama Winnie, as she was fondly known. This bears testimony that her legacy for the fight for equality and justice will continue as a hallmark of our common endeavor for justice. We acknowledge the messages of condolences that have been received from various heads of state and eminent persons across the globe. Mama Winnie touched many lives, not only in South Africa, but on the continent and in the world. And of course, people were inspired by her courage, her tenacity during the fight for freedom, and the subsequent suffering she endured as a result of her involvement in the struggle in the hands of the apartheid regime. It is, of course, with a sense of sadness to accept that she has departed from this world, but also a sense of pride that she lived to ultimately see freedom for her people, her country, and that her struggle was not in vain. Since the passing on Monday, the 2nd April 2018, Many South Africans and the international community have been sharing with the family the love they had for Mam Winnie, their experiences, direct and indirect. Our government has befittingly declared a special official funeral Category 1, which entails elements of military ceremonial honors and is declared in line with the Presidency's state official and provincial official funeral policy. In her case, for persons of extraordinary credentials, specifically designated by the President of the Republic of South Africa. National days of mourning, as you know, have been declared from the 3rd of April to the 14th of April. In line with this declaration, the national flag have, with immediate effect, been flown as half-mast at all flag stations countrywide and also in all our diplomatic missions abroad. This will be observed until the evening of the 14th. In consultation with the Mandela Madikizela family, with the government, national and provincial, the government will host a memorial service here in Soweto. Initially, we looked at Regina Mundi as the family wished, but this is being changed, and we are looking at this very stadium now, but that will be finalized later. The discussions are still going on to just firm up the logistics, so we'll do the final announcement, but definitely it will be here in Soweto. And the government has already made available condolences books in many venues. The international ports of entry like OR, DECO head office at the OR building in Pretoria, in Parliament, Daniers, the Union building, Department of Arts and Culture. As you know, she was Deputy Minister of Arts and Culture. In GCIS, all provincial legislatures, all premiers' offices. And we will also be placing condolence books at Bramford for the reason that Umama lived in Bramford, though he was banished there by the regime. But she worked there with the people of Bramford, and they also feel very special. And she felt she worked with them, so it's very important that they be given the opportunity. The other one will be in Bizana and Umtata. As you know, Mama comes from Bizana. That's where she was born and bred. So those are the places where the condolence books will be. And of course, Mama Winnie dedicated her life to fight for the reduction of poverty, abolishment of racial injustices, as well as struggle for gender equality. So as we pay tribute and celebrate her life, let us reflect on what we should do to continue her legacy in fighting for social justice and for a better life for all. We also call on all political parties, faith-based organizations, civil society to work together cohesively during the mourning period, including the memorial service and the funeral services. The funeral service itself will be here in this stadium. So all activities we plead should be conducted with respect and dignity. and with love, as Mama loved all of us and worked with all people in South Africa. And all members of the public are invited to come out in their numbers to celebrate her life and her legacy. Should provinces and municipalities wish to organize memorial events in honor of Mama Winnie, they should do so after duly adopted resolutions of their executive councils and municipal councils, respectively. In this regard, the Minister of Corps, Zwelini Mkhize, will issue a guiding letter to the provinces and the municipalities. Members of the media are requested to apply for accreditation for the official memorial service and the funeral of Mama Winnie. The link for the online registration is on the GCIS website. The deadline for the submission of the details is 12 midday on Friday, the 6th April 2018. So please make sure you are registered. The collection for the venue for the collection of the media accreditation card will be announced in due course. For now, we're just encouraging you to register. Lastly, as the Interministerial Committee was satisfied with the ongoing preparations and the work done towards the memorial and the funeral services, we all appreciate the outpouring of the support and the manner in which the public is celebrating the life of Mama Winnie. We also would like to thank the members of the media who have made it possible for those who are unable to be in Gauteng to still be able to be part of these events, especially at the family house in Orlando. We know that you've been there, stationed in Orlando, but you've also been taking feeds from outside the province. So thank you very much, and we hope we'll continue to work with you in the manner we have until the 14th of April. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Members of the media, we're going to invite questions, and the IMC will be ready to respond. Can I take questions for clarity, comments? I assume it is quite clear, but I'll still allow you to raise questions if there are any. Can we start? I'll give numbers. There's number 1. There's number 2 at the back. There's number 3. Yes, let's start with you, Sisi. Introduce yourself and the media house you come from.
Hi, Slindelo Masigane from ENCA. My question is just with regards to who is expected to attend. Have any dignitaries indicated their willingness to come and attend the funeral? And just with regards to also the funeral itself, you say it's a category 1. So is this, are we expecting a funeral that's going to be one like President Nelson Mandela received? Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2. Yes. Number 3.
Hi, my name's Dennis Farrell. I'm from Associated Press. Can you let us know what dignitaries you're expecting, for example?
Kindly raise your voice.
Sorry. Wanting to know which international dignitaries one would be expecting for the funeral. Example, Jesse Jackson, maybe the Clintons, former President Kenneth Kaunda, if you're allowed to divulge that at this point.
Thank you very much. Those were the 3 questions. If I may invite the Minister, you may respond from the men. Yeah. I call. Okay.
Thank you very much for those questions. The questions about dignitaries. We do expect dignitaries. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation is the one that's receiving the confirmations of those who would like to come, and in due course they will have a briefing with the diplomatic corps. The briefing with the diplomatic corps is also two-pronged, because the diplomats who are based here will be the ones that will confirm who from their countries are coming and who's not. So that will come in due course. There may be unofficial, not official confirmations that I can say we have received, because that is being handled by DECO. But we know that there are people who are coming. So just be patient. That conference will be held that will confirm with the diplomatic corps. The nature of the funeral itself. The special official funeral category 1 is the highest you can give to a civilian. The state funeral is only for heads of state and former heads of state. So this one will have elements of the military, but it's not the state funeral. It's the special official funeral category 1, meaning the highest that you can give to somebody who is not a head of state. I hope that clarifies it. So there'll be some similarities to that, but we cannot say it will be exactly like, because that one is a state funeral that Tata Matiba had. The funeral service will be here in Orlando Stadium. And the interment, the family announced that it will be at Fourways. Thank you. Fourways Memorial Park, to finish.
Thank you very much. I take it that there might have been provocation or an afterthought to ask further questions. Let's allow those hands. Can I indicate, therefore, that this will be the last round? Number 1 and number 2, and that is it.
Sbahle Mota from Jacaranda FM News. So I just want to find out, with those in and around Soweto, will they be provided any maybe buses to come to the stadium, seeing that maybe many may not have transport to make their way to the funeral?
Thank you. Number 2, the last.
Silwan Khalani, Media 24. Will media be allowed at Fourways? That's all we want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Minister?
Thank you very much. The logistics are being worked on. As you can see, we have the government at national, at provincial. We're working. Those logistics of buses and all that are being worked on, and they will be announced to the various communities. The media at Fourways, I think so. I think it will be allowed. Why did you ask? Did you hear something different? For For now, it's a public, unless we hear otherwise from the family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of this media briefing. We will continuously give updates as and when new developments occur. And have a good day. We're now moving to the family, where the leadership of the ruling party, the government of Gauteng, are also going to connect with the family. Thank you very much.
A reiteration that Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela will be afforded a special official funeral, and as announced, it will be a Category 1 official funeral, which is just one notch below the state funeral, which is only reserved for heads of state. And she did also reiterate that flags will be flown at half-mast at all flag stations locally and abroad, and at all embassies around the world. And that fact that condolences books will be placed at Brandfort, her former home in the Free State, and as well as her ancestral village of Bizana in the Eastern Cape. And the funeral service again will be held at Orlando Stadium. Well, that was Minister in the Presidency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, giving us logistical arrangements of how the funeral service will pan out. This is Newsroom.
SABCnews.com is your one-stop digital portal to all the news you need. With a website that is easy to use on mobile, SABC News prides itself in being the primary source of public service content across multiple platforms. Watch live streams of all the big news events on the SABC News YouTube channel, which is one of the most viewed South African YouTube channels globally. And catch up on the best of SABC television and radio news. Follow breaking news on all of the SABC News social media platforms, interact with SABC News on Facebook, and stay connected on Twitter for the latest headlines and real-time updates by our reporters. SABC News, everywhere.
Welcome back. Recapping the top stories making news headlines this morning. Sierra Leone's opposition challenger, Julius Maada Bio, has secured his first term in office as a civilian when he was declared the winner of a controversial presidential runoff. Brazil's Supreme Court has ruled that former Brazilian President Lula da Silva will be imprisoned while he appeals his corruption conviction. And Facebook says the personal information of up to 87 million users may have been improperly shared with political consultancy Cambridge Analytica. The South African Communist Party says it will not offer support to former President Jacob Zuma during his impending fraud and corruption trial. Zuma will tomorrow appear at the Durban High Court to face fraud, corruption and racketeering charges. Well, these charges stem from the arms deal of the late 90s. The SACP was at the forefront of supporting Zuma during his court appearance in 2005. However, the party started distancing itself from Zuma amid allegations of patronage, corruption and state capture. The party is now singing a different tune.
Definitely not. We are of the view as the SACP that now we really do need to respect the courts. The courts have come around to establish that this case must go ahead, and we will abide by that. We won't be outside the court this time around.
How is it different from the previous court case in Pietermaritzburg?
Well, that's a long story, Sophie, which I can't answer in a brief, impromptu press conference, because at that time we were really convinced that there was serious abuse of state institutions to fight and settle internal scores. We were convinced. There were many signs of that. And as the Communist Party, we were very consistent. We did not only take this matter up in relation to former President Zuma. When comrades Cyril, Tokyo and Matthew Posa were being accused of plots that were not there just because they were wanting to stand for some positions in the ANC, we're the first ones to come out to say, this thing must not be done, it must come to an end. Even today, we will continue to fight any abuse of state institutions to settle political scores. At the moment, in terms of what has happened over the last 10 to 12 years, this matter being in and out of court, argued, and in the end, the President Zuma himself admitted through his lawyers, that it was irrational for this case actually to be withdrawn by the National Prosecuting Authority. So it's not only us, it's his lawyers as well who have said that. So let's allow the process to take its course.
5 people arrested in the petrol bomb attack which claimed 6 lives on a bus carrying mine workers near Burgersfort in Limpopo are expected to make their first court appearance at the Mecklenburg Magistrates Court this morning. They will face charges of murder, attempted murder and malicious damage to property. The suspects allegedly attacked a bus carrying 52 mine workers on Monday evening. 28 workers are still being treated in hospital. The miners were from Modigua Platinum Mine in Burgersfort. Now, the suspects aged between 21 and 30 were arrested at 5 different locations. Meanwhile, the process to identify the deceased is expected to be completed soon. Police say they expect to make more arrests. Moving beyond the borders now, Sierra Leone's opposition challenger Julius Maada Bio has secured his first term in office as a civilian when he was declared the winner of a controversial presidential runoff. His opponent, Samura Kamara, has meanwhile vowed to contest the result. Bio, a former soldier who briefly led a military junta more than 2 decades ago, won 51.81% of ballots in last month's election. Shortly after the announcement, Bio was sworn in as president. And moving further afield, the Supreme Court in Brazil has ruled that the former president Lula da Silva must begin serving his 12-year prison sentence for corruption. After 10 hours of legal arguments, the judges ruled 6-5 against Lula's bid to remain free, pending further appeals against his conviction. Lula claims the charges are politically motivated and designed to prevent him from running in October's presidential election. Polls suggest he is the top candidate in the race. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has insisted that he's still the best person to lead the company after it emerged that data of as many as 87 million people may have been inappropriately used by British-based political consultants. Facebook previously acknowledged that 50 million users were affected. Zuckerberg has since apologized.
He had the wherewithal, the legitimate and legal wherewithal, to collect data on Facebook users that we might be able to use in part of our modelling. And we entered into a a contract with this individual to undertake a large-scale piece of research for our company. And that involved going out and asking somewhere close to 40,000 individuals to undertake a survey, a bit like an opinion survey. And as part of that survey, the individuals consented to give up some of their data to this academic, Dr. Kogan, and also some data on some of their friends. Now, this work was undertaken by Dr. Kogan in its entirety, and he simply delivered to us the model derivatives of these data that he collected. And we then looked at how we could build models on top of these models to understand whether that would give us any insight or any signal into these audiences.
All right, let's go for an air break now. A Newsroom will be right back shortly thereafter.
Nations, 44 matches live on SABC 1 and 19 SABC radio stations. SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
Time for Newsroom Sport. Good morning to you. Henry Schoeman won South Africa's first Commonwealth Games gold in the men's triathlon as he outpaced the Brownlee brothers. Schoeman upstaged triathlon's all-conquering Brownlees as the English brothers were left trailing. Schoeman, who came third behind Alistair and Johnny Brownlee at the Rio 2016 Olympics, seized control on the running leg to win it in 52 minutes 31 seconds, 7 seconds ahead of Australia's Jacob Birthwhistle. Scotland's Mark Austin took bronze, while Johnny Brownlee dropped back to finish 7th and Alistair Brownlee was 10th. Schoeman's compatriot Richard Murray ended in 6th spot.
Take the gold medal and celebrate across the line here at Southport Quarter Parklands.
In the women's event, world champion Flora Duffy claimed gold for Bermuda, the country's first ever Commonwealth gold, ahead of England's Jessica Learmonth, while Canada's Joanna Brown took bronze. The top placed South African woman was Gillian Sanders, who ranked 15th after ending 6 minutes behind Duffy. Moving on to football now, Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates claim victory to continue setting the pace at the top of the Absa Premiership, while Kaizer Chiefs moved to third after a last-gasp away win over Free State Stars. Masandawana and the Buccaneers are still separated by just a point, although the Brazilians have a game in hand after they claimed a 2-0 home win over Chippa United. The victory came courtesy of goals from first Percy Tau and then Kama Billiat.
Yes, he can. Kama Billiat.
Musa Nyatama opened the scoring for the Buccaneers in the 17th minute in their match against Bloem Celtic. Celtic then levelled the score through Lorenzo Godinho. But the hosts weren't done yet. They found the winner through a superb strike from substitute Augustine Mulenga. Meanwhile, Kaizer Chiefs moved into third place on the log after a 1-0 win at Free State Stars, with teenage Hadebe netting deep into injury time to secure the win. And SuperSport United lost 1-0 at Polokwane City. Rodney Ramakhalela added another goal to his collection this season.
And then finally does connect into the back of the net.
A full look at the midweek fixtures and results for the ABSA Premiership. Confirmation of those wins for the pace setters Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates. It was goalless between Cape Town City and Golden Arrows as they shared the spoils. The same scoreline between Platinum Stars and Baroka FC. Platinum Stars at the bottom of the ABSA Premiership log. Speaking about which, here's a look at the top half of the log. Kaizer Chiefs, they're up now to a third spot. Bidvest Wits, they have continued their climb after a disastrous start to the season. They've done much better in 2018. They're up to 8th place on the log. However, it's not looking so good in the second half of the table for Platinum Stars and Ajax Cape Town. Ajax Cape Town on Tuesday losing to AmaZulu despite the unrest from the AmaZulu fans at the King Goodwill Zwelithini Stadium. Bloem Celtic, they're knocking on the door of the top 8, and that's what your ABSA Premiership log looks like after the midweek fixtures. Liverpool swept Manchester City aside with a 3-goal thriller to take a commanding 3-0 first leg lead into their UEFA Champions League second leg of their quarterfinal. Champions-elect City lead Liverpool by 18 points in the English Premier League. But their only league defeat this season came in a 4-3 match at Anfield in January, and they suffered an even worse fate to leave their hopes of winning the European Cup for a first time hanging by a thread. Just as in the January meeting between the sides, the prolific Mohamed Salah, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Sadio Mane were on target for the hosts.
Incredible for Liverpool. Salah, one of those ending left foot shots. Now it's a cross. Mane's going in. Liverpool get another one. 3 in 30 minutes at Anfield. More space to run into.
In the other quarter-final tie last night, Barcelona capitalized on 2 disastrous own goals from AS Roma to take a huge step towards reaching the Champions League semi-finals for the first time in 3 years, as they thrashed Serie A side 4-1 at home in the first leg of their quarter-final.
Give new life to this child. Not yet away, and they have a fourth, and at last he has his goal.
In reaction to the 3-0 victory last night, Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp says there's still room for improvement.
Still space for a lot of improvement. But, of course, the result is the most important thing. And I never expected a perfect performance. I expected only that we be a real challenger, and we were a real challenger, and now we are 3-0 up. That's better than being 3-0 down 100%, but it's not a decision. Everybody knows that as well. We go to Manchester City and they want to strike back.
We needed 1 goal, we could not score it, and of course, so I think in this room it is nobody except the guys who is talking to you believes we're going to go through. Tomorrow we're going to try to convince ourselves in this week to try it in 6 days, to try to do our game. It's 90 minutes more, we're going to try.
Meanwhile, Liverpool have apologised to Manchester City after bottles were thrown at their team bus as they arrived at Anfield for that Champions League quarter-final first leg. Fans let off red flares and threw beer cans at the City bus, with 1 bottle smashed on the side. However, no windows were broken. The team's coach, Pep Guardiola, said he expected better from a club of Liverpool's stature.
Oh, it happened something in Dortmund, so we come here to play football, to sports, and I don't understand this kind of situation. So, okay, nothing happened, the bus is destroyed, but I didn't expect from a club this prestigious like Liverpool do this kind of thing. So, of course, it's not Liverpool, it's the people, but it wasn't 1, ni 2, ni 3, but hopefully don't happen again.
There's lots been happening in the world of sport. We'll have more sport for you on Newsroom a little bit later on. Time now to check in with the weather.
your midday report. Good afternoon.
I will be free.
I assume as President of the Republic of Kenya.
Let's take a look at how African markets and currencies are performing now.
The central bankers say the success of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is just a bubble.
Breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m. A meteorite hit the Earth 2 million years ago, creating an enormous impact of crater, about 10 kilometers in diameter, near Vredefort in the Free State, 100 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, now known as the Vredefort Dome, a South African World Heritage Site. The meteorite is said to have been larger than Table Mountain and caused a 1,000 megaton blast of energy. The impact would have heated about 70 cubic kilometers of rock and have increased the Earth's oxygen levels to a degree that made the development of multicellular life possible. The world has about 130 crater structures of possible impact origin. The Vredefort Dome is the largest in the world, followed by Sudbury Crater in Canada and the Chicxulub Crater in Mexico.
We're shooting a campaign. We're telling genuine stories from real people that have been affected by the SABC. It's also interesting to get the backstory in terms of their dreams to be on screen and eventually getting the pleasure to do that. And understanding that they're communicating on a platform that speaks to millions of people. It speaks to how the SABC can fulfill its mandate.
The SABC represents the opportunity for so many young South Africans, for old South Africans, to be able to look at the world that they may not experience any other way.
People should continue to pay their TV license because it allows the SABC to bring quality programming.
The TV license is really part of the lifeblood of the channel and the corporation.
When you're listening to your favorite jams, you're listening to your favorite radio DJ, you must know that you made it possible by paying your TV license.
It's such a holistic process that goes into TV licenses. It's not only one part where we say South Africans have to pay for TV licenses. You pay a TV license because you get so much value out of it, and that's the content that you get every single day on the SABC platforms.
I have been in the film industry now for 51 years. I am quite satisfied with the evolution of television now, that you have got a lot of actors and you have got a lot of crew members, which will also play part of paying our licenses, because I think it's proper.
Technology is used for both positive and negative.
Some governments block the internet in times of protest.
With this internet blackout, it's impossible for me to do it, so I have to travel to Douala.
This act is a true violation of the rights of citizens.
In Africa, people are always coming up with innovative ways to use technology to solve some of their problems.
The more interesting piece of technology is actually the artificial intelligence.
AI, it's utilizing data to make your life easier.
a network working the Africa's technology and social media news.
For all your technology news, join Siphumelele Zondi every Saturday at 17:30.
The area of Blowbush was bought in 1895 by a private syndicate consisting of 31 Christian Zulu landowners. The elegant Methodist church and school was built in 1912 from local sandstones. From 1917 to 1918, the well-known Chief Albert Luthuli was appointed the principal of the tiny intermediate school.
Well, the school was established in 1912. It was a significant year according to the history. We are having the Titanic sinking in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. We are having the biggest and the oldest political organization being formed. That was the ANC. The parents in this era were busy rolling their sleeve. They carved these big stones into shapes and they erected a building. They called it a school. The name of the school was Blowbush Bantu Community School. The word or the name Blowbush, it means an indigenous land. Blue bush in English, it's blue bush. Then in Dutch, it's Blowbush. So that's how the school was formed.
He taught at the school for 2 years before moving to the Adam College near Amazindot, where he stayed for 15 years. Chief Albert Luthuli became well known later in his life when he got involved in politics, becoming the president of the African National Congress. Chief Albert Luthuli Museum is a national cultural institute inside the school in hope to conserve, uphold, promote and speak about the life, values, philosophy and legacy of the late chief.
Namhlanje iblowbushi isikolo nesonto nomuzo waqaba lapho wayehlala khona mazibe ama-heritage landmark sites. Sibhizi right now siyakhulumisana na-Amafa Heritage Council that iBlowbush Primary School and the Methodist Church, nomuzo waqaba, they must be declared heritage sites.
During his stay in Blowbush, Chief Albert Luthuli was confirmed in the Methodist Church and became a preacher. It was noted over the years that the language of the Bible and Christian principles profoundly affected his political style and belief for the rest of his life. Today, Blowbush is striving to become the main commercial and industrial center in the northern KwaZulu-Natal. Continuous development will be seen in the city and the municipality is working towards making the area more sustainable.
It's 10 o'clock and these are the top stories. Minister in the Presidency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, has announced that the late struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela-Mandela will receive a Category 1 official funeral. Over 80 ANC National Executive Committee members will visit the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela-Mandela's home in Orlando West, Soweto to pay their respects. And the South African Communist Party says it will not offer support to former President Jacob Zuma during his impending fraud and corruption trial. And coming up in our sport later on, Henry Schoeman wins South Africa's first medal of the 2018 Commonwealth Games. A very good morning to you. This is Newsroom coming to you live from Johannesburg. I'm Simpie Ngona. Thank you so much for joining us. Now this is the top story. Minister in the Presidency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, has announced that late struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela-Mandela will receive a Category 1 state funeral. In her capacity as the chairperson of the Interministerial Committee appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa, she says condolences books will be available at all the government offices across the country, including the union buildings in Pretoria. She says national flags will be flying at half-mast until the evening of her funeral on April the 14th. Well, she says after consultation with the family, both the memorial and the funeral service will be held at Orlando Stadium in Soweto and not at Regina Mundi Church as initially reported.
The Interministerial Committee on the State and Official Funerals wishes to take this opportunity to again voice the President's and the government's expression of condolences to the Mandela and Madikizela families, to the South Africans, the continent, and the world at large. On behalf of the government, we would like to thank everyone across the globe for their overwhelming support to the Mandela and Madikizela families. We also want to thank all South Africans, including the media, who have come together to celebrate, to reflect on the selfless sacrifices made by Mama Winnie, as she was fondly known. This bears testimony that her legacy for the fight for equality and justice will continue as a hallmark of our common endeavor for justice. We acknowledge the messages of condolences that have been received from various heads of state and eminent persons across the globe. Mama Winnie touched many lives, not only in South Africa, but on the continent and in the world. And of course, people were inspired by her courage, her tenacity during the fight for freedom, and the subsequent suffering she endured as a result of her involvement in the struggle in the hands of the apartheid regime. It is, of course, with a sense of sadness to accept that she has departed from this world, but also a sense of pride that she lived to ultimately see freedom for her people, her country, and that her struggle was not in vain. Since the passing on Monday, the 2nd April 2018, many South Africans and the international community have been sharing with the family the love they had for Mam Winnie, their experiences, direct and indirect. Our government has befittingly declared a special official funeral Category 1, which entails elements of military ceremonial honors and is declared in line with the Presidency's state official and provincial official funeral policy. In her case, for persons of extraordinary credentials, specifically designated by the President of the Republic of South Africa. National days of mourning, as you know, have been declared from the 3rd of April to the 14th of April. In line with this declaration, the national flag have, with immediate effect, been flown as half-mast at all flag stations countrywide and also in all our diplomatic missions abroad. This will be observed until the evening of the 14th. In consultation with the Mandela Madikizela family, with the government, national and provincial, the government will host a memorial service here in Soweto. Initially, we looked at Regina Mundi as the family wished, but this is being changed, and we are looking at this very stadium now, but that will be finalized later. The discussions are still going on to just firm up the logistics, so we'll do the final announcement, but definitely it will be here in Soweto.
Meanwhile, tributes continue to pour in from around the world for the late ANC stalwart Mama Winnie Madikizela-Mandela. Former President Jacob Zuma and AU Commission Chairperson Musa Faki Mahamat were among those who visited the Madikizela-Mandela family home in Soweto.
The second former president has paid his tribute.
She represented many of the mothers who had their husbands in prison, in exile, whose names are not known. Some of them would never be known. She represented that type of a citizen in our country. And she also encouraged them that you could not just sit and say, my husband is arrested.
President Zuma also thanked President Cyril Ramaphosa for giving Mama Winnie a dignified send-off.
She has touched too many people, and all these people should be allowed to come close to this space. We want to thank the family for opening their hands. We have seen all political parties coming here. We think that's the right thing. It must happen.
Opposition parties continue to be represented.
What a wonderful person. I was a young man at that time in 1994 when I joined Parliament, and it was such a wonderful thing to be in the presence of persons with the awe and the aura that Mama Winnie Mandela and other freedom fighters who were in Parliament at that time was. It was a great, and she was always a very humble, friendly kind of individual.
And Africa's highest office has come to Soweto.
I'm here today in Soweto on behalf of the whole family of African Union to pay my respects to the memory of Ma Winnie, who is not only mother of South African nation. She is one of the last of our liberation heroes on the continent.
And the owner of the private Igbinedion University of Nigeria that conferred Mama Winnie and former President Nelson Mandela with honorary degrees.
I'm very sorry, but God knows the best. God knows it all. And the children look behind, we live on. But I joined the whole millions in the world and people of South Africa to mourn him.
Flags continue to fly at half-mast around the country and in missions abroad as the country begins a period of mourning declared by President Ramaphosa until the burial on the 14th. Ntakwana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto.
As tributes continue to pour in for the late struggle icon, Winnie Madikizela-Mandela, her picture outside her struggle credentials was also painted. Those who are close to her have described this liberation fighter as a brilliant, generous and kind mother.
From the humble beginnings of Bizana in the Eastern Cape to a global icon, people here knew Mama Winnie as a politician and mother. Her connections to Kunu was through her marriage to the late statesman Nelson Mandela. The Madiba clan says she was true to the character of a decent wife. She mourned her former husband, though they were no longer married. The people of Kunu acknowledged the respect she displayed for her wedding vows. The Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa, Contralesa, also remembered Madikizela-Mandela as a true leader who also fought for the recognition of traditional leaders.
They were aware that there was a time where Mama Winnie was isolated, and by people who are now singing her praises. But we know what used to happen because she was part of us then, even in Parliament. But we just hope her soul can rest in peace, because she has done a lot to this country.
Her friend and comrade Dr. Brigalia Bam recalled her fond memories of her young Nomzamo Madikizela Mandela. She befriended her in the 50s at Jan Hoof Meyer School of Social Work in Johannesburg.
Winnie opened so many doors for women and for social workers. Secondly, Winnie became a very important model for young women, because as people see her walking down the long corridors in Baragwanath, she was not a doctor, and everybody got to know this woman as Winnie, a social worker. Many people, and I'm not exaggerating, many people who didn't know much about social workers, because no social workers were roaming around the hospitals at the time.
Madikizela Mandela's contributions in the liberation struggle has been documented by various filmmakers. Renowned film producer Anand Singh reflected on his personal encounters with the late Mama Winnie. Singh spent a lot of time with her when producing the film titled Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom in 2013.
When I started with the movie Mandela Long Walk to Freedom, based on Madiba's book, it was a long journey, but she was always very supportive. But at the same time slightly apprehensive, because, you know, as a filmmaker, Madiba said to me, show me for my weaknesses and my strengths. And I said to her the same thing, that, you know, all of us have weaknesses and strengths.
However, one of the darkest moments in Mama Winnie's marriage must surely have been her divorce to former president.
It was a very difficult time for Winnie. It is inevitable when one's friends become divorced that the relationship between one of them and you changes.
Muntlengani Dipoku, SABC News.
Winnie Madikizela Mandela also championed the cause for justice. Reporter Griselda Lewis and cameraman Gabi Njogweni track a family who experienced this firsthand.
She was the voice for ordinary people till the end. And the Madibas can attest to that. Their young daughter Palisa went missing in August 2013. Her remains were found in a shallow grave at a house in Piri 2 years later. Also shocked by the incident, Mama Winnie reached out to the bereaved family, arriving unannounced at their home.
I just heard a knock at the door, and it was Mama Winnie. She said she had been following Palisa's story and wanted to know what happened to my child. The story of my child broke her. She even called the police to her home with us and wanted to know what was happening with the case.
Despite Palisa's remains recovered 3 years ago, a suspect is yet to be apprehended.
It is under investigation, so we are unfortunately not able to divulge more given the sensitivity of the case.
The
Madibas, one of the countless families Madikizela Mandela showed compassion for, they have a renewed hope that they will be able to find closure soon. Griselda Lewis, SABC News, in Soweto.
Let's take a look at other news making headlines. The South African Communist Party says it will not offer support to former President Jacob Zuma during his impending fraud and corruption trial. Zuma will tomorrow appear at the Durban High Court to face fraud, corruption and racketeering charges. The charges stem from the arms deal of the late 90s. Well, the SACP was at the forefront of supporting Jacob Zuma during his court appearance in 2005. However, the party started distancing itself from Zuma amid allegations of patronage, corruption and state capture. The party is now singing a different tune.
Definitely not. We are of the view as the SACP that now we really do need to respect the courts. The courts have come around to establish that this case must go ahead, and we will abide by that. We won't be outside the court this time around.
How is it different from the previous court case in Pietermaritzburg?
Well, that's a long story, Sophie, which I can't answer in a brief, impromptu press conference, because at that time we were really convinced that there was serious abuse of state institutions to fight and settle internal scores. We were convinced. There were many signs of that. And as the Communist Party, we were very consistent. We did not only take this matter up in relation to former President Zuma. When comrades Cyril, Tokyo and Matthew Posa were being accused of plots that were not there just because they were wanting to stand for some positions in the ANC, we're the first ones to come out to say, this thing must not be done, it must come to an end. Even today, we will continue to fight any abuse of state institutions to settle political scores. At the moment, in terms of what has happened over the last 10 to 12 years, this matter being in and out of court, argued, and in the end, the President Zuma himself admitted through his lawyers, that it was irrational for this case actually to be withdrawn by the National Prosecuting Authority. So it's not only us, it's his lawyers as well who have said that. So let's allow the process to take its course.
The Democratic Alliance leader Mmusi Maimane says it's all systems go for the party congress that starts on Saturday. Maimane is expected to retain his position as a party leader. He spoke to our senior political journalist Aldrin Sampier.
It's great to be part of the DA. I think we have the biggest congress that the party's ever held. We'll have delegates from all over the country. It'll be the most diverse congress. But let alone who is coming to Congress. I think for the first time ever we're considering resolutions that deal with the day-to-day living of South Africans. This is a party now that governs for 16 million South Africans, a party that can demonstrate to the people of this country we're the alternative. And I think it's actually quite exciting. There have been many debates and contestations in the party. And I think overall South Africans can reflect and see the fact that this is a choice that they can make, and I'm quite excited about Congress.
Do you at all feel that the old guard of the party may have been shocked by the rapid growth of the party and the various backgrounds and the representation coming from different backgrounds and so forth, to such a point that they find themselves looking back and like, wow, this thing is now so big, how do we deal with this?
I think everybody in the DA is adjusting. Because remember, even the job of government, we used to be a party that was based in the Western Cape. Now we're here in Gauteng, we have a presence, we have a footprint here. Furthermore, we're the only party with structures all over the country. Furthermore, we're the most diverse organization. So I think everybody has had to adjust. I think even in the people of South Africa need to see that this party is a party for all. And I think it's going to be absolutely important that as we carry on that momentum going forward, we demonstrate that difference. We govern in such a way that shows that difference. And everybody in the organization needs to know now that in fact they're part of a movement that hopefully one day wants to govern not only more provinces, but one day to govern South Africa.
5 people arrested in the petrol bomb attack which claimed 6 lives on a bus carrying mine workers near Burgersfort in Limpopo are expected to make their first court appearance at the Mecklenburg Magistrates Court this morning. They will face charges of murder, attempted murder and malicious damage to property. Well, the suspects allegedly attacked a bus carrying 52 mine workers on Monday evening. 28 workers are still being treated in hospital. The miners were from Modikwa Platinum Mine in Burgersfort. The suspects, aged between 21 and 30, were arrested at 5 different locations. Meanwhile, the process to identify the deceased is expected to be completed soon. Police say they expect to make more arrests. Security is tight at the Witbank Magistrates Court in Mpumalanga, where 4 men accused of killing 2 children, one of them with albinism, are appearing. 3 of the 4 suspects are applying for a bail application. Thokozani Msibi, Mthobisi Mkhize, Themba Thubane and Knowledge Mhlanga are facing charges of murder, kidnapping, conspiracy to commit murder and violating a corpse. Thokozani Msibi, who is a traditional healer, was denied bail last month. And on our question for the day today, what are your thoughts on the night vigil that has been organized in support of Jacob Zuma? Send us your comments at SABC Newsroom. Use that hashtag SABC News. We'll certainly share those comments shortly after the break.
Special assignment. Crime keeps the society in terror and pain. Why so?
If someone phones me, tells me, okay, look, you need a solver, and I get you all driving, I'll take it.
What pushes normal people to be so hard, heartless, and brutally kill one another?
The other side of it could be more for their own psychological need. It might be part of a sexual fantasy that they have. It could be about power and control.
After proper investigation is followed, the perpetrator gets arrested.
It was part of a massive process. And ultimately they were parents, I think justice is served.
Emotional scars remain.
We would pay any price to get him back, and the sad reality is that it's gone.
Special assignment. We unravel the truth every Sunday at 21:30.
Welcome back. We asked you earlier on what your thoughts are on the night vigil that has been organized in support of Jacob Zuma. Let's take a look at your comments. Zami says, we still have people who will never get it. South Africa must not allow those Zuma supporters to intimidate them. Zuma needs to have his day in court like every criminal. Justice must be served and no one is above the law. Michael says, it's very thoughtful and touching. It goes to show how many people love and appreciate our former head of state, Mr. J.J. Zuma. He has touched so many lives throughout his life, and this is just a token of appreciation and also a reminder that he's not alone. Zondi Limbaza says, if people want to stay all night in support of Zuma, well, let them be. And now for a poll for today, are you happy that government has signed the renewable energy deal? 67 people believe so and 33% say no. All right, let's take some more tweets. Tabo says, so far, yes, but we will wait until we see how will that improve our lives. Lechasa says, that's another method of trying to steal the money from the poor. Don't just clap hands for something you don't really understand. Lechasa again says, government is trying to steal more money with his energy deal.
Thanks very much, Simpiwe. So our sports question was on quite a patriotic note. You know that South Africa won their first gold medal at the Commonwealth Games. So we asked, can we bring home more gold medals? It was a simple yes or no. 92% saying it's an absolute yes. 8 only saying no. You've got no confidence in the team. We always do so well at the Commonwealth Games and sit in the top 10 when it comes to the medal table. Lagasa Batlamolo saying yes, we can bring back more. Oh yes, we can. We've won our first one this morning in the men's triathlon, and there may be more this evening when it comes to the swimming finals. Yes, and congratulations to Mzazi, says Tabo Quincy Peta.
All right, thank you so much there, Valen. Let's now take a look at what's happening on our Facebook page. Corruption Watch says growing public pressure on corrupt people and systems has contributed to the significant changes in South Africa. And in its 2017 corruption report, the organization says there's been a 25% increase in the number of reports of corruption in 2017. And then finally, European law enforcement officials say they are tracking at least 65,000 migrant smugglers, twice as many as at the height of the migration crisis 3 years ago, as the illegal trade booms. And finally, New York police shot dead an African-American man in Brooklyn on Wednesday after mistaking a piece of pipe he was holding for a gun. Jeez. Well, simply search for SABC Newsroom on Facebook, follow and interact with us. And let's take a look at the front pages from around the continent. And we start right here in South Africa. The Sowetan reports that more than 1 million of provident funds owed to the recently retrenched OR Tambo International Airport security guards are missing. Moving on to Zimbabwe, the Herald says that President Emmerson Mnangagwa has said his state visit to China has been very successful and has given momentum to Zimbabwe's thrust of rebuilding the economy. And finally, in Namibia, the Namibian reports that activist Job Amupanda says Justice Minister Sakias Shangala is responsible for the low esteem he claims to have in the eyes of the public. And coming up after the break, SABC News speaks to a filmmaker about a documentary about Winnie Madikizela Mandela going some way to push back against the years of propaganda that was centered on discrediting her. A clip of that interview after the break. It's 10:30, recapping the top stories making news headlines this hour. Sierra Leone's opposition challenger Julius Maada Bio has secured his first term in office as a civilian when he was declared the winner of a controversial presidential runoff. Brazil's Supreme Court has ruled that former Brazilian President Lula da Silva will be imprisoned while he appeals his corruption conviction. And Facebook says the personal information of up to 87 million users may have been improperly shared with political consultancy Cambridge Analytica. Sierra Leone's opposition challenger Julius Maada Bio has secured his first term in office as a civilian when he was declared the winner of a controversial presidential runoff. His opponent, Samura Kamara, has meanwhile vowed to contest the result. Bio, a former soldier who briefly led a military junta more than 2 decades ago, won 51.81% of the ballots in last month's election. Shortly after the announcement, Bio was sworn in as president. And moving further afield, the Supreme Court in Brazil has ruled that the former president Lula da Silva must begin serving his 12-year prison sentence for corruption. After 10 hours of legal arguments, the judges ruled 6-5 against Lula's bid to remain free, pending further appeals against his conviction. Lula claims the charges are politically motivated and designed to prevent him from running in October's presidential election. Polls suggest he is a top candidate in the race. As the world remembers Winnie Madikizela Mandela, we take a look at an award-winning documentary released last year, which looks at the life and the tribulations of Winnie Madikizela Mandela. In the film, French filmmaker Pascal Lamche framed her life in the context of just how the world has a different standard in judging female leaders.
We were the cannon fodder, we were the foot soldiers, and we were exposed to the viciousness of apartheid.
It's a story that for 10 years my late partner Peter Makarube and I wanted to make. I'd made a film in the past about the Rivonia trial and also about Sophiatown, and I'd made another film in Soweto. So I'd made a number of films here. And I'd also met Madiba and interviewed him, but I was always really intrigued by Mama Winnie.
There's thinking people, and there's people who are determined to survive, and there's fighters. She's an activist. She's not the type of person who can be voiceless.
Apartheid is a criminal act. The white man has the audacity. He is 3.5 million. We are 30 million.
There are different ways of understanding how history is made. I'm not just talking about this story. And the way history is taught generally, firstly it's written generally by the victors, and secondly it's often constructed around great male figures. When I say great, I mean those who had political power or economic power, etc., etc. Far more complicated are social histories that are grassroots histories and that come from below, and also often histories that either involve working class people or women, etc., etc. So what I was really saying there was real history is made on the ground by real people. And obviously this film tells the story of a very, very significant political figure in the struggle for freedom in South Africa, who happened to be a woman, and who happened to, but who very specifically suffered the consequences of being a woman, because the methods that were used in order to discredit her and also to demonize her had a lot to do with the fact that she was a woman. And of course, principally that she was Nelson Mandela's wife. I think the truth is that there is a lot of half knowledge, less than half knowledge that's out there in the world that still, unfortunately, deems Mama Winnie to be a character that is reprehensible, a character associated with the murder of children. I mean, really demonic things. And when you look at history, often women have been reviled, have been considered to be troublemakers. You know, you look at the witch in history, etc., or even the notion of the tar baby, i.e. someone to whom you can throw all the darkness of a situation in order that everybody else can come out looking squeaky clean. And I think those narratives are still out there in the world, unfortunately. Her mythical, symbolic power as the mother of the nation. You know, Madiba was in a way the father of the nation. Winnie was Mama Wetu, not in an unproblematic way, but she captured the hearts and minds of black South Africans, obviously. And so, unfortunately, though, I also think that she then suffered from that, I don't know, from that what is it? It's not a label, but from that form of respect, because to be considered mother of the nation and then to have an association with the murder of a child, Stompy, attached to that sort of magnified the demonization. So it's a complex idea, but when you're structured either as a wife, as she was, you know, and she became Madiba's political proxy, obviously, when he was sent to Robben Island for a lifetime. You're a wife, you're a mother of the nation, then you're tarred with these terrible things to do with children. And so it's a complex idea.
Would you be prepared to take up a gun and kill someone in order to achieve your freedom?
Now I know I can.
What struck me the most, that I understood more and more throughout the making of this film, and each time I met with her and spoke with her, etc., was that she's driven by a fantastic conviction, and it's one that hasn't changed. It's very, you know, she is close. She lives here in Soweto. She lives with the people. She's close to the people. She has, her principles have never changed. Her politics have never changed. And so that's what sustained her. And so even though she understands with her acute intelligence all those things that have gone wrong and gone awry and all the contradictions that keep being played out in this country, her heart and soul, her intelligence, her commitment is to bettering the lives of South Africans. And that, I think, means, you know, that very fundamental principles of free education, you know, a living wage for workers, a health system that functions, etc., etc. All these things that were really enshrined in the Freedom Charter quite at the beginning. She's always been the articulator of that. And when, as you see in the film, she came into conflict with Madiba and those who were seeking a settlement as quickly as possible in that very dangerous time between 1990 and 1994, she was always the voice of that, those core principles of the liberation movement, and she continues to be that today.
when life takes a different turn.
If I didn't eat the speak, he was going to evict me.
Your will to persevere is ignited.
I'm not a professional speaker, but I'll try my best to give you a word of inspiration.
He was just trying to provide for his family.
If you can't accept it, change it. If you cannot change it, accept it.
And a new story begins.
Made a resolve to myself. I'm learning something new.
Upilong, every Friday at 5:30. Be part of the life-changing journey.
No. Yes. Yes.
Sports Live every Saturday and Sunday at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. Let's bring you your sports news now. It was a golden start for Team South Africa at the 21st Commonwealth Games on Australia's Gold Coast. South Africa's Olympic triathlete Henry Schoeman bagged the country's first gold medal. Schoeman broke away on the run leg to beat local favourite Jacob Birthwhistle, while Mark Austin of Scotland claimed bronze. South African swimmer, meanwhile, Tatiana Schoenmaker set a new African record in her 50-metre breaststroke heat.
Alistair Brownlee, who, even by his lofty standards, has had a fantastic swim leg.
England favourite Alistair Brownlee was first out of the water after a 750-metre swim, but Schoeman was hot on his heels. In the 20-kilometre cycling, Brownlee and his brother Jonathan stayed ahead in the leading group, but Schoeman and another South African, Richard Murray, continued the chase. Schoeman finally pulled away in the 5-kilometre run.
He gives a high five to Richard Murray, his countryman, and why not?
And finished the event in a gold-winning time of 52 minutes and 31 seconds, 7 seconds ahead of Birthwhistle, with Austin taking the bronze. Murray finished in 6th place, ahead of the legendary Alistair Brownlee in 7th. It was Schoeman's second big medal win. He also bagged the bronze at the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. The Durbanite will next be in action in the team relay on Saturday. The South Africans won the silver at the 2014 Games in Glasgow. Elsewhere, Olympic medalist Chad le Clos finished second in his 50 metres butterfly heat, just behind medal favourite and world champion Ben Proud. But the Englishman was disqualified immediately for a false start. Le Clos' 23.53 seconds then made him the fastest qualifier for this afternoon's semi-finals. Ryan Coetzee also impressed in his heat. He won in 23.94 seconds to qualify third fastest for the semi-finals. His compatriot Bradley Tandy was third and also advanced. Schoenmaker gave Leeston Pickett a run for her money in their 50 metres women's breaststroke heat. Pickett touched the wall just ahead of Schoenmaker. The South African's new African record of 30.92 seconds, good enough to qualify third fastest for the semi-finals. Two more South Africans advanced to the men's 100 metres backstroke semi-finals. Martin Bandal and Calvin Justice finished fourth in their respective heats. Erin Gallagher will also be in action again this afternoon. Her third place finish in her 100 metres butterfly heat made her 8th fastest overall. The South African women's hockey team, meanwhile, impressed despite suffering a 2-0 loss to Glasgow silver medalists England. The South Africans will next face Malaysia on Saturday.
And you'll know, looking at the faces of the South African players, how hard they've had to work to keep it to 2-0.
Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Moving on to football now. Mamelodi Sundowns and Orlando Pirates claim victories to continue setting the pace at the top of the ABSA Premiership. Well, Kaizer Chiefs have moved to third after a last gasp away win over Free State Stars. Sundowns and Pirates are still separated by just 1 point at the top, though the Brazilians have a game in hand after they claimed a 2-0 home win over Chippa United thanks to goals from Percy Tau and Kama Billiat.
Billiat's away! Can he finish? Yes, he can! Kama Billiat! 10 minutes to go! Mamelodi Sundowns double the lead!
In the Pirates' Bloem Celtic match, Musa Nyatama opened the scoring for the Buccaneers in the 17th minute. Celtic then levelled the score through Lorenzo Godinho. And the hosts found the winner through a superb strike from substitute Augustine Mulenga.
We'll have it again.
Kaizer Chiefs, meanwhile, moved into the third place on the log after a 1-0 win at Free State Stars, with a defender Teenage Hadebe netting deep into injury time to secure the win. And SuperSport United came unstuck against Polokwane City. They lost 1-0 as Rodney Ramakhalela added another goal to his collection this season.
They were waiting for it, and then finally does connect into the back of the net.
Confirmation of the midweek ABSA Premiership fixtures and what happened last night. It's certainly been a very busy week. So what do those results mean to the ABSA Premiership log? Well, Stars are 6 points away from Ajax Cape Town and safety. Meanwhile, at the top, Pirates are maintaining the pressure on Sundowns, who have a game in hand. Log leaders Mamelodi Sundowns coach Peter Musmane.
They're tough, and if you want to impress and show off, you can get caught. So this is not the times for showing off. This is the time to grind the results. And if you score, look after the game, look after the game. You know they will respond. They have to come to you, and then we can go a little bit behind. You know, because you've got speed there with Kama and Percy. Yeah, but it's tough times, my friend. It's quick bomb time, yeah.
Liverpool swept Manchester City aside with a 3-goal thriller to take a commanding 3-0 first leg lead in the UEFA Champions League quarter-final. Champions-elect City lead Liverpool by 18 points in the English Premier League, but their only defeat this season has come via Liverpool, a 4-3 defeat at Anfield in January, and they suffered an even worse fate to leave their hopes of winning the European Cup for a first time hanging by a thread. Just as in the January meeting between the sides, the prolific Mo Salah, Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain and Sadio Mane were on target for the hosts.
Incredible for Liverpool. Salah. Ending left foot shots now. It's a cross. Mane's going in. Liverpool get another one. 3 in 30 minutes at Anfield.
More space to run into.
In the other quarter-final tie in the first leg, Barcelona capitalised on 2 disastrous own goals from AS Roma to take a huge step towards reaching the semi-finals of the competition for the first time in 3 years, as they thrashed the Serie A side 4-1 at home in the first leg of their quarter-final. And Stephanie Gilmore of Australia and Italio Ferreira of Brazil are the 2018 winners of the Rip Curl Pro Bells Beach, which is the second stop on the World Surf League Championship Tour. The final day of competition ran in excellent 2-meter conditions at the world-renowned Bells Beach for its 57th year. In addition to Gilmore and Ferreira celebrating their wins, 3-time world champion Mick Fanning celebrated the last championship tour event of his competitive career. The 4-time Bells winner now says goodbye to elite competition after 17 years on tour and 22 championship tour victories. The Australian's story comes full circle as he ends his career in the finals at the same event where he first won as a wild card. During the quarterfinals, Ferreira earned 2 excellent scoring rides with an 8.83 and a 9.03 for a massive 17.86 heat total against Ezekiel Lau, the highest total on the tour this year so far. In the final, Fanning didn't wrap up his last ever CT heat without a fight. Both surfers laid everything they had on the table given the conditions on offer, battling until the end. Fanning earned an 8.1 on his first scoring wave, but Ferreira was able to find a last-minute gem, securing an 8.33 agreed to take the lead. And in the end, it was the Brazilian who earned his first ever championship tour event win. That concludes your sport. Time now to check in with Phil.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's take a look at what's going on in your weather today. We'll start off by taking a look at the rainfall in South Africa. Showers and thinner showers concentrated in its eastern regions. Unlike yesterday, the Eastern Cape province is not receiving too much rainfall for today. Isolated to scattered showers focused around its far eastern areas, but you can see the western parts of South Africa remain clear all the way throughout the day of rainfall. Anyway, we take a look at most of the rest of Southern Africa and indeed a lot of Central Africa seeing rainfall all the way through today and on into tomorrow as well. You can see showers and thinner showers for most of the subcontinent here. And then again, tomorrow we're expecting a lot less rainfall in South Africa. So high pressure systems coming in and starting to disrupt that prevalent low pressure system in the area. But here's where the difference comes in. South Africa's southern coastline and the southwest around Cape Town receiving up to a 60% chance of showers tomorrow. Fantastic news for the area. So speaking of that, let's take a look at what we can expect in the southwest there. Cape Town peaks at 23 degrees Celsius. We'll see a cloudy day for today. Tomorrow, remember, 60% chance of showers there. Temperatures of 26 and 29 forecast for Pretoria and Durban respectively. So a little bit warmer on the west coast than up here in the Highveld. Let's take a look now at our neighbouring states. Well, Gaborone peaks at 32 degrees, Saroy at 30. It's going to be a warm and dry day there in Bulawayo and Beitbridge at 29 and 39 respectively. Windhoek peaking at 28 and Maputo at 33, both expecting dry conditions. Now, today's weather for Mahajanga peaks at 33 degrees Celsius. It is going to be wet through most, if not all, of Madagascar for today. It's least isolated showers, but warm conditions are yielding some rather high levels of humidity, so feeling even warmer than that. Dar es Salaam 28 degrees. Lusaka and Lilongwe there in the southern part of this map here are going to receive temperatures of 28 and 27 respectively. It's a bit wet in Lusaka today. Rainfall forecast around Kigali as well. As we saw on our map a little bit earlier, most areas of Central Africa are expecting rainfall for today, so at least isolated showers for many areas here. Quickly into the northern hemisphere, we're seeing high pressure systems dominant over that northern coastline, and this is starting to look a lot more like spring conditions here, with a bit of rainfall in the southern parts of Western Africa, a bit of rainfall moving through Ethiopia and surrounding areas today and tomorrow as well. Let's leave it there. Stay tuned though with the SABC.
32 nations, 44 matches live on SABC1 and 19 SABC radio stations. SABC is the official broadcaster of the 2018 FIFA World Cup Russia.
If you ask this Irish master whiskey distiller why sometimes whiskey is paired with an E and sometimes without, he'd say,
"Oh, to be sure. You feel so good, look. It's the whole thing. They're back and get off in the whiskey without the E."
Yeah, didn't catch that. But if you asked us the difference, we'd tell you that every whiskey from around the world is spelled without the E, except for Irish and American whiskies. Cheers. Tops at Spa. Good whiskey, good advice, no Irish accents.
Shervin Bricebys, SABC News, New York.
Paul Barber, SABC News, London.
Tebo Mokobo, SABC Ufa go tswa mo Russia.
Neha Punia, SABC News, Saharanpur in Uttar Pradesh in India.
Other than that, I've enjoyed every single moment of it.
Tapana Ngatani, SABC News, Soweto, Johannesburg.
This is Tanya Mukwamu, co-founder of a mobile application called MaxiCash. The app is aimed at helping African expatriates send money home.
When one thinks of sending money home, it could be peer-to-peer cash transfers, or it could be buying airtime or paying for school fees or hospital bills. So the list really expands. So it was just making that process a lot easier for African expats, bearing in mind that they have such high fees, going through your traditional agencies and so forth. So we just thought that, that money could be routed to better use.
Being an expat from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Tanya found it rather challenging to send money from South Africa to her home country. This is when the MaxiCash app was born.
It was really personal frustration to begin with, like I think a lot of solutions. I'm an expat myself. I'm originally from the DRC, so I've had that experience of sending money to my parents or anyone I support back home, and having to leave work and take time off, and there's so much paperwork, and often you don't have the right papers. I've been robbed, believe it or not, with all the with cash on me. So it was really just my own experience, and through studies, obviously, I noticed that a lot of African experts and others experience the same issues. So it took the time to study and have the proper technology and make sure the market was ready for our solution.
Because of South Africa's functional banking infrastructure, mobile money services such as Kenya's M-Pesa rarely survive. What makes MaxiCash different from these?
The app is available for download on Google Play and your Apple Store. And one downloads it from anywhere. And we do have some selective markets where you can cash out your funds. So right now, from a cash out point of view, you can cash out in South Africa as well as the DRC, and soon entering into the Eastern African market. We integrate with the FNB e-wallet, so the recipient will receive the money like they would, you receive your SMS, your e-wallet payment is there, and you go to any FNB ATM and cash it out.
Tanya comes from a logistics and transportation industry and fell into the tech world, where she learned a lot, and with the help of other techies, she eventually built an app that will make life easier for others.
Buy airtime. Obviously, you can sponsor airtime for someone across the border. So you've got.
It's 11 o'clock. Good morning, and these are the top stories. Minister in the Presidency, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, has announced that the late struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela-Mandela will receive a Category 1 official funeral. ANC National Executive Committee members have arrived at the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela-Mandela's home in Orlando West, Soweto. Also coming up in the headlines, the South African Communist Party says it will not offer support to the former president Jacob Zuma during his impending fraud and corruption trial.
To grind the results, and if you score, look after the game, look after the game. They will respond. They have to come to you, and then we can go a little bit behind, because you've got speed there with Kama and Percy. Yeah, but it's tough times, my friend. It's squeaky bum time,
Sundowns coach Peter Masmanis says it's squeaky bum time in the final push to the league title. The team are happy to maintain a 1-point gap with 6 matches still to play.
The good run here from Zwane.
A very good morning to you. This is Newsroom on SABC. I'm Simpio Ngona. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm joined by our sports lady, Nkosazana Velen. A very good morning to you, Velen. Good to have you. What you got for sports?
Simpio, thank you very much. Good to be with you on this Thursday morning. So much sporting action to speak about. And of course, considering the time difference between Australia and South Africa, lots to report from Australia and from the Gold Coast, where the Commonwealth Games are taking place in 2018. All that and more coming your way at 1:45 of the hour. Simpiwe, it's over to you for the lead stories.
All right, thank you so much, Velin. She'll be back in about 40 minutes for all the latest in sport. But first, your top story. The minister in the presidency, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, has announced that late struggle stalwart Winnie Madikizela-Mandela will receive a Category 1 state funeral. In her capacity as the chairperson of the Interministerial Committee appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa, she says condolence books will be available at all the government offices across the country, including the union buildings in Pretoria. She says national flags will be flying at half-mast until the evening of her funeral on April the 14th. Dlamini-Zuma says after consultation with the family, both the memorial and the funeral services will be held at Orlando Stadium in Soweto and not at Regina Mundi Church as initially reported.
Official funerals wishes to take this opportunity to again voice the President's and the government's expression of condolences to the Mandela and Madikizela families, to the South Africans, the continent and the world at large. On behalf of the government, we would like to thank everyone across the globe for their overwhelming support to the Mandela and Madikizela families. We also want to thank all South Africans, including the media, who have come together to celebrate, to reflect on the selfless sacrifices made by Mama Winnie, as she was fondly known. This bears testimony that her legacy for the fight for equality and justice will continue as a hallmark of our common endeavor for justice. We acknowledge the messages of condolences that have been received from various heads of state and eminent persons across the globe. Mama Winnie touched many lives, not only in South Africa, but on the continent and in the world. And of course, people were inspired by her courage, her tenacity during the fight for freedom, and the subsequent suffering she endured as a result of her involvement in the struggle in the hands of the apartheid regime. It is, of course, with a sense of sadness to accept that she has departed from this world, but also a sense of pride that she lived to ultimately see freedom for her people, her country, and that her struggle was not in vain. Since the passing on Monday, the 2nd April 2018, many South Africans and the international community have been sharing with the family the love they had for Mam Winnie, their experiences, direct and indirect. Our government has befittingly declared a special official funeral Category 1, which entails elements of military ceremonial honors and is declared in line with the Presidency's state official and provincial official funeral policy. In her case, for persons of extraordinary credentials, specifically designated by the President of the Republic of South Africa. National days of mourning, as you know, have been declared from the 3rd of April to the 14th of April. In line with this declaration, the national flag have, with immediate effect, been flown as half-mast at all flag stations countrywide and also in all our diplomatic missions abroad. This will be observed until the evening of the 14th. In consultation with the Mandela Matikizela family, with the government, national and provincial, the government will host a memorial service here in Soweto. Initially, we looked at Regina Mundi as the family wished, but this is being changed, and we are looking at this very stadium now, but that will be finalized later. The discussions are still going on to just firm up the logistics, so we'll do the final announcement, but definitely it will be here in Soweto.
More than 80 ANC National Executive Committee members have arrived at the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela's home in Orlando, in Soweto, to pay their last respects. Let's cross to Ntakwana Gatana, our reporter, for the latest. A very good morning to you, Ntakwana. Thank you so much for joining us. Looking at the visuals in the background, we see that there's a bit of activity there. Tell us what's happening.
Well, it's actually not a bit, Simpiwe. On the 4th day since Mama Winnie passed away, activity here seems to be increasing by day. And it's quite a small space, as you can imagine. And every day we see more and more ANC members come here. We see more and more flowers and candles and her pictures being placed outside. But of course, there are more marquees also that are being set up. For today, for the first time, we've been able to go inside. When the NEC members arrived, we were able to get a photo op. They are yet to come out, as you've indicated, and we expect them to give us an address. But that's just one of the places that's been designated inside the homestead. But if you look behind me here, already the ANC has set up its own van where we expect that a lot of activities will be happening. And behind it, behind the flying flag of the ANC also, is another marquee. This is another area that's been designated. We expect that there will be prayers here at the home, and of course there are more and more people coming from all over the world, as we saw, including from Africa. The head of the African Union, Musa Faki Mahamat, was here yesterday. So a lot of activity happening outside the Mandela home in Orlando West in Soweto. Sipiwe.
Well, Ntakwana, as you mentioned, that quite a number of dignitaries have made their way to the Mandela home in Soweto. I mean, who else have you spotted there?
Well, today it's mainly the members of the NEC. Of course, you remember that many of them are members of cabinet, and the president, the deputy president, and the other members of the top 6 were inside talking to the family when we went inside. And that means that those top 6 will come out here and address the media any moment now. And I think that's about to happen now, Simpiwe. But we have another camera across the road that will take care of that. So inside also what we saw is a condolences book, but we expect that the ANC will officially unveil their own condolences book here outside the home in Soweto. Simpiwe.
All right, Ntakwana, I do understand that the media briefing is about to take place any minute from now, so I'm going to let you go for now, and we'll cross back to you in just a moment. That was a reporter, Ntakwana Gatane, speaking outside the Winnie Madikizela Mandela home in Orlando West in Soweto. We do understand that the media briefing by the ANC, the ANC's NEC, will take place any minute from now. We'll certainly dip into that as soon as it takes place. All right, yesterday marked 50 years since the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. As the world remembers the slain U.S. civil rights leader, we also mourn Winnie Madikizela Mandela. His wife, Coretta King, first came to South Africa in 1983. Initially, she was meant to meet with South African government at the time, but 15 minutes before her meeting with P.W. Porter, Mrs. King cancelled and instead went to Soweto to see Winnie Mandela. Now, following the meeting, the two addressed the media.
The greatest and most meaningful moments of my life, and I feel that part of a destiny that has been with me for so many years has been fulfilled. Mrs. Mandela is a great symbol of strength and courage and dedication for women and children and people everywhere. We love her very deeply for her perseverance and for her, in spite of the experiences that she has been subjected to, her continuing ability to love and to inspire and to yield. I know that this is only the beginning of our coming together in the future and working actively together for the freedom of all people, and particularly the freedom of the people here in this land who have suffered for so long under oppression. We shared so much this morning, and it's only the beginning. God has blessed us, and I feel it a great blessing to finally meet Winnie and touch
What's the comment, Ms. Mandela? I am as emotionally moved as Mrs. King is. To me, to the children who have died for what she symbolizes, to my country, to the oppressed people of this country, who have sacrificed their blood in an attempt to bring about the peace in mankind, her husband preached to his dying day. She is a symbol of the sacrifices of children in 1976. She is a symbol of what my people continue sacrificing for. To us, it is extremely touching that she and the family and all those who are with her have come here to identify with us at a very difficult time in our struggle. We appreciate very much what she has done, and we draw a great deal of inspiration from her courage. We have drawn a lot of inspiration from the strength she had. We draw a lot of inspiration from her warmth, her love, and the fact that she is devoid of all bitterness. She is devoid of all the hate one would have imagined a person in her position might be consumed in. She has come here to give us that inspiration, and she has come here as a symbol of that peace we have been prepared to give our lives for. Thank you, Coretta. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, the rest of the family who are with you. Thank you.
Mrs. Mandela, will you please?
No question. Thank you very much.
We won't have a chance to see you again today. We wondered if you were pleased that Mrs. King chose not to see President Porter.
It is not a question of whether I am pleased or not. I think that is her private matter. To us, she symbolizes what she symbolizes. And I think, in fact, it is a bit of an insensitive question to ask.
Thank you very much.
Let's move on to other news now. Basotho National Party's Chief Thesele Maseribane has also passed his condolences to the Republic of South Africa and the family of Winnie Madikizela-Mandela. Several Basotho also conveyed their condolences.
Today it is with great sadness and heavy hearts that we now have to say our condolences to the family of Madiba, the South Africans and ANC as a party by losing the stalwarts, the great leader, the daughter of the soil that has fought for the freedom of South Africa and the black people at large.
By virtue of Winnie being a woman, that it goes without saying that it has really affected the women fraternity. Yes. In the late 70s, when I was studying midwifery at Livingston Hospital in Port Elizabeth, during the times of the death of Steve Biko, Winnie was fighting tooth and nail, and the husband was still in jail. She was fighting for the freedom of South African people.
The thing is, in that evening when we were sitting at Desmond Tutu's house and everybody was lambasting us for having done something without talking to the leadership, and by leadership then they talked, I think, about higher leadership of the Black People's Convention or maybe South African Students Organization, maybe the ANC in exile or the PAC in exile. We did not have contacts of that nature, so we engaged in something that is pretty quick. Then we were sitting there being lambasted for about 2 or 3 hours. I remember while we were sitting there, Sis Winnie walked in. Right. She was very young at the time and very smart and feisty, beautiful as everybody else knows her. And she says that I'd like to know who these people are who made this so we can actually support them.
The South African Communist Party says it will not offer support to former President Jacob Zuma during his impending fraud and corruption trial. However, ANC structures in KwaZulu-Natal are preparing to defy the governing party's National Executive Committee by mobilizing support for the former president. Zuma will tomorrow appear at the Durban High Court to face fraud, corruption and racketeering charges. Well, these charges stem from the arms deal of the late 90s. The SACP was at the forefront of supporting Zuma during his court appearance in 2005. However, the party started distancing itself from Zuma amid allegations of patronage, corruption and state capture. And the party is now singing a different tune.
Definitely not. We are of the view as the SACP that now we really do need to respect the courts. The courts have come around to establish that this case must go ahead, and we will abide by that. We won't be outside the court this time around.
How is it different from the previous court case in Pietermaritzburg?
Well, that's a long story, Sophie, which I can't answer in a brief, impromptu press conference, because at that time we were really convinced that there was serious abuse of state institutions to fight and settle internal scores. We were convinced. There were many signs of that. And as the Communist Party, we were very consistent. We did not only take this matter up in relation to former President Zuma. When comrades Cyril, Tokyo and Matthew Posa were being accused of plots that were not there just because they were wanting to stand for some positions in the ANC, were the first ones to come out to say, this thing must not be done, it must come to an end. Even today, we will continue to fight any abuse of state institutions to settle political scores. At the moment, in terms of what has happened over the last 10 to 12 years, this matter being in and out of court, argued, and in the end, the President, Zuma himself, admitted through his lawyers, that it was irrational for this case actually to be withdrawn by the National Prosecuting Authority. So it's not only us, it's his lawyers as well who have said that. So let's allow the process to take its course.
Well, as former President Jacob Zuma prepares to appear in court tomorrow, our senior political reporter Aldrin Sampear takes a look at his case.
The 6th of April. It's a seminal day on Zuma's legal calendar. The Zuma trial comes full circle. On this day, exactly 9 years ago, the corruption charges he faced were dropped.
In the course of the representations, the defense made certain very serious allegations about alleged manipulation of the NPA and indicated that these were substantiated by recordings of certain telephone conversations which it intended handing into court during the intended application for a permanent stay of prosecution.
And that announcement would launch 1,000 legal ships to bring Zuma into the dock. Eventually, the courts ruled in favor of the DA, and the party was finally given access to the so-called spy tapes.
We are going to be using this as evidence in a review application on the withdrawal of over 700 counts relating to corruption, fraud, money laundering and racketeering that were withdrawn against the president before he became the president in 2009.
The court battles were far from over, but April 29, 2016 marked a turning point.
Mr. Zuma should face the charges as outlined in the indictment.
Since the charges were dropped in 2009, the NPA vociferously defended the decision not to prosecute the president. Years would go by until a concession that the then acting NPA had used the wrong law to drop the prosecution.
Can you defend technically the basis at which this decision was arrived at?
No, I'm not defending that.
So you can't defend that. So what we're at idem about is that in terms of the decision and the technically correct aspects, they erred.
I would accept that, Justice Nasser.
Well, let's take a step further. In other words, they made an irrational decision.
Well, that is then correct, yes.
Legal analysts argue the concession and the High Court ruling forced NPA boss Shaun Abrams' hand to reinstate the charges. Zuma, now out of the highest office in the land, is served an indictment by the man he appointed 3 years ago, despite his representation.
Mr. Zuma's representations, broadly speaking, largely relate to allegations of a prosecution characterized by prosecutorial manipulation, impropriety, fair trial abuses, prosecutorial misconduct, deliberate leaking of information to the media, and irrational decisions made by various national directors and or acting national directors of public prosecutions, along with inexplicable delays for approximately 15 years in bringing his matter to trial. Mr. Zuma, in addition, disputes all the allegations against him and records that he lacked the requisite intention to commit any of the crimes listed in the indictment.
But as Zuma appears in court, this is not the beginning of the trial.
I'm not guilty.
He's still fighting the decision to reinstate the charges stemming from the controversial arms deal. Aldrin Sampear, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The Democratic Alliance leader Mmusi Maimane says his party has made strides in addressing the problems of non-racialism. Maimane spoke to our senior reporter Aldrin Sampear about this issue.
The project of non-racialism takes a lot of work in and of itself. It means you've got to bring South Africans from all walks of life together. And, 8 out of the 9 provincial leaders happen to be black Africans who represent a myriad of. And for us, the picture is always that it's not one race over another. We're not in a party that wants to dominate one race over another. It's actually to get everybody to work together. Because when people are working together in South Africa, we can resolve the challenges that we have. And it requires all races recognizing that there's an injustice in South Africa and we can work together. So it's not only just in marches across structures, and you will be able to see it even at Congress, that the representation of the various delegates will show the beauty of our country.
If it's not about one race over the other, then why the introduction of this diversity that you feel that the party needs?
It's important because I think the value stems out of the fact that let's acknowledge South Africa's history. South Africa's history has been a domination of one race over another. You had British colonialism. Then you had, maybe before that, you had Dutch colonialism. You had British colonialism. Then you had Afrikaner nationalism. Now you have African nationalism. If you don't create a space upon which you can say, actually, South Africa, as departing from the Constitution in 95, that shall belong to all who live in it, black and white, that in fact, as a party, you want to occupy that space in the middle that says the democratic center where black people, white people can work together, it's a value I want to hand over to future generations of this party. That's why it's important to put a stake in as a differentiator where parties stand up and say, we are a black party or we are a white party. We are a party for all South Africans. And that's why this value is so important. Because not only does it break racial nationalism, it says every individual in South Africa has a value to contribute and that the party should always uphold a diverse. And diversity is not only just a function of race, it's also a function of age and gender and various practices of those who worship and don't worship, sexual orientation. All of these issues come together in a DA, and we're the only party that is contesting for that and standing up for it and saying, this is the South Africa Nelson Mandela would have wanted, and it's a South Africa we continue to pursue.
What do you then say to someone who may argue that the DA is now turning into probably an ANC light, and there are some of those who have always voted for the party, especially the white constituency, who now feel that they need a different political home?
I think that part of organization growth and changing dynamics means that you've got to work hard to bring everybody with you. And you can recall in 2015 we said, we are not a party of a solidarity of races. If the DA was a solidarity of races, then we then become a federation. We say, well, this is the voice for black people, a voice for white people, a voice for colored people. That's not what we're about. What we're about is saying different people can come together on the basis of values. Those values are freedom, fairness, and opportunity. So for white South Africans or black South Africans, we share common interests. And I think part of the great difficulty of our past is that people have tried to convince us that we don't. Well, I might be in a room with a white South African, but we both would care that our kids live in a fair society, a society that is free, and a society that offers up opportunities for them. So for those white South Africans, it then becomes important for them to say, there's the vision that unites us. We don't unite because we are just white. We unite because we have a vision for this country.
Let's cut out of that interview now, shall we? More than 80 ANC National Executive Committee members have now arrived at the late struggle icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela's home in Orlando West to pay their last respects. And the media briefing has already started. Let's cross there now.
Deputy President, Secretary General.
Gabi, please move.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, he's coming to the front.
After the Secretary General, the Treasurer General is going to sign. Then afterwards, the Deputy President will be addressing all of you. We will also just show the members of the media how the book looks like, because it's quite wet heavy on your picture.
Okay, check now. Check now, check now, check now, check now.
To signal how the ANC was bidding farewell to Mama Winnie. The Treasurer General is also signing the condolence book. The afterwards, members of the NEC, including the president of the Youth League, of the Women's League.
Well, as you can see now, the members of the NEC, led by Deputy President David Mabuza, are now launching the ANC condolences book outside the home. And the Deputy President has signed the book. And now the Treasurer General has also signed the book. And we expect that all the 80 members of the NEC who are here will also sign that book. Also inside there's another book that has been opened by the government, and this is the book that has been signed by all of the people that have come to the home to pay their condolences.
By the Deputy President, Secretary General, the Treasurer General, and all members of the NEC came here today, and you, as we do always, to pay our respects to the family. Now, without any waste of time, we came here this morning because we know throughout the day you are always here, because this place has been your home for many years. So today we are here, and led by the Deputy President, is going to speak to you, the media and the world, about the statement of the National Executive Committee in passing condolences to Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Comrade David Mabuza, Deputy President of the African National Congress. Amanda! Viva David Mabuza, viva! Pambili ngo David Mabuza, pambili! Pambili ngo Cyril Ramaphosa, pambili! Pambili ngo Matamela, pambili! Pambili ngenkokeli zonke ze ANC, pambili! Pambili ngo Nomzamo, pambili! Long live Solomon Mahlangu, long live! Long live Solomon Mahlangu, long live! Deputy President, the floor is yours.
Amandla! Amandla! Madla! Matimba! All power! Thank you. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the National Executive Committee of the ANC to convey our thanks to all the people who have been coming here to convey their condolences, especially the members of the ANC who kept the fire here, kept the fire burning. Members of the media, thank you very much. You were sleeping outside here trying to cover every detail of what is happening here. As the ANC, we want to remind you that the person, the leader that we are talking about, is an embodiment of our struggle. She is the proud bearer of the scars of our liberation. She is the torch bearer of our freedom. As the ANC, we hold this name in high esteem. We respect this leader. And we are saying to all of you, celebrate this life. Learn what you can learn from this life that was well lived. We are not going to disallow people. This leader was a leader of all of us, irregardless the ANC. We are going to live by her will. all political parties are allowed to come to this family. Everyone is allowed. This is our leader. Everything that is going to be done in this house, we hope is going to be done with the necessary respect, the respect of the person that we are here for. This is the person who fought, was in the forefront of our struggle. We owe it to her for our freedom. We owe it to her for every achievement that we have made as a country. We are going to take this opportunity as we celebrate her life and send a message to the ANC to say the journey continues. ANC members must unite, and take over the spear and proceed. Unity within our ranks, the renewal of our movement, the struggle continues. That is the best prize we can give to our fallen hero. This is the leader of our nation. If we want to send her, give her a very good send-off message, ours is to proceed where she has left. Let's pick up the pieces. Let's proceed. As long as there is unemployment, as long as there is poverty, as long as there is inequality, the struggle continues. Members of the ANC, the national leadership will come from time to time here as we prepare for the funeral. You're all allowed to move in and out. The support that you give to the family is very important in this darkest hour, in this darkest moment. We encourage you to support the family in whatever kind. Stay close to this family. The ANC and government will be here. They will be coming in and out as they prepare for the funeral. We wish you all the best, the necessary discipline that we expect here. We're not going to have another opportunity to remind our comrades and our people to give the necessary respect to this family. Amandla! Amandla! Viva ANC! Viva! Long live the spirit of Mama Matigizela Mandela. Long live! Long live the spirit of Comrade Winnie. Long live! Amandla! Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy President. Comrades, without any waste of time, I'm going to ask General Temba Matanzima uMadiba uphuto omdala welkhaya asizapha sizokhunga lomndeni ukuthi anikezele njengamazwi ambalwa kwaba bantu nalamaqabani alapha namhlanje on behalf of the family after the Deputy President. Madiba.
Thank you very much, Deputy President and the leadership of the ANC. On behalf of the family, again, we would like to thank everybody. We appreciate your support. We're getting support from the local people, from the international community, from all organizations. We say thank you very much. We needed this support. We know that our mother belonged to all people of South Africa and the world. The support that the members of the media have been giving to us is really appreciated. Siyabonga. Kokubakho apha emini nobusuku. People continue to support us by working inside, by coming with prayers, by coming and talk to the people, giving us advices and messages of support. We can assure you that there's great cooperation between the family, Madikizela Mandela, the government and the ANC, your organization. We really appreciate because umama wetu ubelilungu elidala le-ANC. Imbeko enisinike yona siyayibulela kakhulu. Nesupport enisinika sona siyasibulela kakhulu. Siyathembisa ukuba sawusebenzisana kude kube ukhathiwe nge-14. Azikho i-changes esinazo ezikhoyo sizixoxa ne-ANC ne-government. So there will be no changes. Siyabonga, kiyalibonga. Thank you very much.
Enkosi General, comrades, the Deputy President have spoken. The ANC is not selfish. We don't own Mama. Umama belonged to the people of South Africa. She was a people's leader, freedom fighter, mother of the nation. And Ipelela Apo, the African National Congress, will continue to celebrate the life and times of Winnie Madikizela Mandela. Last announcement. On Monday, comrades, we'll have a memorial service at UJ, former Vista University. Nebona ngisho. Siyalapha siyomapango buningi bethu under the banner of the African National Congress. On Monday, at 4 o'clock, Vista Soweto, former Vista UJ campus. Yazwana Makaban. Secondly, Monday, all provinces, with the exception of the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal and the Western Cape, we will have ANC memorial services throughout the country. And then we'll have a memorial service, national memorial service, Kamama, Mbizana, on Tuesday, which will be addressed by President Cyril Ramaphosa. That is on Tuesday. Siyazwana Makaban, in the Eastern Cape. On Monday, we will go back to the Free State, Bramford, where Mama was banished for many years. So let's continue this journey working together. The people of the clergy, omama bemithandazo, abefundisi bethu, sibulela kakhulu ngenkxaso eninike umndeni. Sibulela kakhulu kwintatheli nabantu abangadinwayo ukuza apha uzobonakalisa inkxaso yabo kulo mndeni, kule family kaMadikizela kaMandela apha kulo mzi. Sibulela kakhulu Maqabane. Xa ndizawuvala ndizawunikezela uComrade Pule, our spokesperson, to make a few announcements. There is a book that has been signed by the Deputy President and the NEC members. Nani, you are free to come and sign. Siyazwana my comrade. It's called a condolence book. Amanda, Comrade Pule, after you, we are closed. You can have one-on-one with the media. If you want to talk to anybody here, Pule will direct what needs to happen. Till we meet again, thank you very much for your time. Pule. Amanda! 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 Comrades, we are going to have on Friday, tomorrow, the 6th of April, an all-black night for Winnie Mandela. This is going to be held at Baseline, a former Baseline Newtown Music Factory. This is going to be a way through which Comrades, we are going to have an all-black night for Winnie Mandela at the Newtown Music Factory tomorrow from 6 o'clock. Hosting a number of artists who were part of the protest theater, numerous other artists in the...
That is Pule Mabe giving us a series of memorial services to be held in honor of Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, and we do understand that, as I just mentioned a short while ago, that there will be an all-night prayer at the Best Line in Newtown in Johannesburg starting from 6 p.m. and then next week Tuesday they will go to Bizana, Winnie Madikizela Mandela's ancestral home in Bizana in the Eastern Cape, and it's to be addressed by the President Cyril Ramaphosa. And then on Monday there will be a memorial service at the University of Johannesburg, formerly Vista University in Soweto, and yeah, that's coming up at 4 p.m. Then they'll move to the Western Cape, or rather in the Free State at Brandfort, where Winnie Madikizela Mandela lived there for 9 years as a result of being banished there. So all these all these services are coming up next week as the country is in mourning for the next 10 days. To beg your pardon. Well, this is Newsroom. Let's now move on to the weather desk.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let's take a look at what's going on in your weather today. We'll start off by taking a look at the rainfall in South Africa. Showers and thinner showers concentrated in its eastern regions. Unlike yesterday, the Eastern Cape province is not receiving too much rainfall for today. Isolated to scattered showers focused around its far eastern areas, but you can see the western parts of South Africa remain clear all the way throughout the day of rainfall. Anyway, we take a look at most of the rest of Southern Africa, and indeed a lot of Central Africa seeing rainfall all the way through today and on into tomorrow as well. You can see showers and thinner showers for most of the subcontinent here, and then again tomorrow we're expecting a lot less rainfall in South Africa, so high pressure systems coming in and starting to disrupt that prevalent low pressure system in the area. But here's where the difference comes in. South Africa's southern coastline and the southwest around Cape Town receiving up to a 60% chance of showers tomorrow. Fantastic news for the area. So speaking of that, let's take a look at what we can expect in the southwest there. Cape Town peaks at 23 degrees Celsius. We'll see a cloudy day for today. Tomorrow, remember, 60% chance of showers there. Temperatures of 26 and 29 forecast for Pretoria and Durban respectively. So a little bit warmer on the west coast than up here in the Highveld. Let's take a look now at our neighbouring states. Well, Gaborone peaks at 32 degrees, Saroy at 30. It's going to be a warm and dry day there in Bulawayo and Beitbridge at 29 and 39 respectively. Windhoek peaking at 28 and Maputo at 33, both expecting dry conditions. Now, today's weather for Mahajanga peaks at 33 degrees Celsius. It is going to be wet through most, if not all, of Madagascar for today. It's least isolated showers, but warm conditions are yielding some rather high levels of humidity, so feeling even warmer than that. Dar es Salaam 28 degrees. Lusaka and Lilongwe there in the southern part of this map here are going to receive temperatures of 28 and 27 respectively. It's a bit wet in Lusaka today. Rainfall forecast around Kigali as well. As we saw on our map a little bit earlier, most areas of Central Africa are expecting rainfall for today, so at least isolated showers for many areas here. Quickly into the northern hemisphere, we're seeing high pressure systems dominant over that northern coastline, and this is starting to look a lot more like spring conditions here, with a bit of rainfall in the southern parts of Western Africa, a bit of rainfall moving through Ethiopia and surrounding areas today and tomorrow as well. Let's leave it there. Stay tuned though with the SABC.
And this wraps up this edition of Newsroom on SABC. Thank you so much for joining us. Join us again tomorrow, same time, right here on SABC News. I'm Simpio Ngon. Till then, it's goodbye from Johannesburg.
Over 5%